Back to the breaking news on North Korea and the UN Security Council holding an emergency meeting today on how to respond to Saturday's missile launch. New technology that could mean faster launch times and greater reach. Barbara Demick is the former Beijing bureau chief for the Los Angeles Times. She's also the author of Nothing to Envy, Ordinary Lives in North Korea. And Major General Bob Scales also joins us. Barbara, first to you. You've spent an awful lot of time in North Korea, which is why I wanted to hear what you had to say. Is there any, I mean, looking at all the strategies of the presidents going back to Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, has anything been successful in dealing with the people of North Korea, or DPRK as they like to be called?
Well, this is a very controversial thing to say. Thank you for the question. I mean, I think under the Clinton administration, they had something called the Agreed Framework that sort of kept things in check for a few years. President Bush thought he could get something better, and he unraveled it and could never put the deal back together again. And then I think President Obama really just ignored it. And so now we have yet another president inheriting this problem.
I thought that the agreed framework that Clinton had worked out back in his administration, that they were cheating, that they were discovered to be cheating, which was one of the reasons it ultimately fell apart.
There's an awful lot of discussion about this. The Clinton people would say that the way they were cheating was not exactly a cheat, that they had a highly enriched uranium program in some beginning level. But you know, you could argue about that for a long time. I think the Clinton people would say it was better than nothing, that it was not perfect, that there were some loopholes in it that the North Koreans exploited, but that at least the plutonium program, which seems to be what they're working with now, was kept under check.
General Scales, let me talk about this missile. It's a medium right. Distance. It's not intercontinental, but it went 340 miles in the Japan Sea. So two questions. Do you know if they have miniaturized a nuclear weapon to put on a missile? That's the first question. And then secondly, could they reach the DMZ? We have 28,000 troops.
Answer to the first question is no, and they're probably 5 to 6 years away from doing that. Remember, to miniaturize a nuclear weapon, you have to get it down to a little less than a ton. That sounds like a lot, but for a nuclear weapon, that's not very much. I think your second question, the answer is yes, absolutely. Not only will this missile reach into South Korea, but they have, gosh, almost 1,000 missiles that they can launch into the South, not to mention 15,000 artillery and rockets that they can fire long-range rockets that will actually reach the city of Seoul, a city of what now, 13 million people? So the threat to the South is enormous. The threat to the United States at this stage doesn't exist.
All right, well, except for the 28,000 of our troops that are on the border, right, which are not as. All right, so now two questions for that. Is number one, has any of the sort of the rogue nations that they pal around with, like Iran, and of course, they bought technology from AQ Khan in Pakistan. Do they have the technology and ability to miniaturize it for the benefit of North Korea? And do they have intercontinental ballistic technology?
The answer is yes and yes. There is almost a rogue nuclear club in the world today. It's mainly centered between Iran and North Korea. There are characteristics of the Iranian missile, you may recall, was launched about a month ago, almost identical to this missile. It's a solid fuel, roughly analogous in flight characteristics to our Pershing II missile that we developed in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, I mean, this is an active program by very bad actors in the world. Remember, Greta, it's important to understand, it's now 2017. Making a nuclear weapon is no longer high technology, it's an engineering project. And so as time goes on, we're going to find these nations getting better and better at this, sadly.
One other quick question. For the 28,000 that are on the border, if for whatever reason North Korea gets angry with us and they don't have the ability to miniaturize a nuclear weapon on an intercontinental ballistic missile, but they are angry with us for whatever reason, and they have the technology to shoot missiles at our 28,000 that are just non-nuclear, right? That do
absolutely
incredible
right.
damage, and to Seoul,
Absolutely right. Remember,
All right.
this is an army that's twice the size of our army. It's 1.1 million men, and they have over 1,000 missiles, 15,000 long-range missiles, 15,000 rockets and long-range artillery that can reach well into Seoul. And many of our troops are near the demilitarized zone. You know, Camp Humphreys is only about, I don't know, maybe 80 miles south of the DMZ. Everything is in Korea, as you remember, Greta. Everything is jammed up very close to the demilitarized zone.
All right. Barbara, based on your experience in North Korea, do you have any sort of sense that they have almost a survival instinct? Or, I mean, do you have any sense if there were, let's say that the United States, for whatever reason, tried to do a military strike, what would you anticipate to be the response?
Oh, I think you have a response that we used to call the last lash of the dragon's tail. If they thought they were going down, they could be very dangerous. And you know that's how they sort of stay in place because nobody quite knows how to get rid of them. You know, we always say, you know, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you don't have real enemies who want to kill you. And they believe that these weapons of mass destruction are all that prevent the Kim regime from going the way of Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein. They firmly believe that.
All right. Now, as to the actual people, when I was there, I had two distinct impressions of the people that I thought were options. One is that they might flee North Korea in the event of something, but then you'd have anywhere from 20 to 25 million people flooding into China, and that'd be the worst humanitarian crisis you can imagine. Or the other is that they are so devoted to their regime and so certain that we're out to get them that they would fight back with everything they had. Your thought?
Oh, I've talked to a lot of North Koreans about that, and I've talked to North Koreans in China who have, you know, just gotten out. I think that if they were attacked, if they perceived themselves to be attacked by the United States, they would rally behind the regime. I really do. Even the North Korean defectors I've met, you know,
that's always been my impression. The last time I was there, I tried to explain to someone that on Saturday night, we Americans are not sitting around training how to kill them, but we're either ordering pizza or Chinese food or figuring out a movie. But they actually believe that we are training like they are training against us.
Yeah. On the other hand, I think we were just discussing this before the show. I think that if something happened internally and the regime collapsed from within, you would have, I've always thought this, you'd have lots of people saying, you know, I haven't believed for the last 15 years. And it's not really a contradiction, but you know, if we tried to take them out from the outside, I think they would rally around. And that's why the threat of the United States has been what's kept them together.
But Greta, you and I have had this conversation. I firmly believe this regime is far more fragile than the facade that they show to the West.
He kills off anyone who gets in his way. I mean, your problem gone.
But if we can attack, if that's the right word, if we can get to their ruling elite with an overwhelming information campaign, much as we used against the East Germans in the 80s, if we can get through to the ruling elite with media and with you know, thumb drives and radio and loudspeakers over time, not tomorrow, not next week, but over years, I think we can wear down the resolve not of the common North Korean soldier or peasant, but of the ruling elite in Pyongyang to overthrow this regime.
And with that, I'm going to take the last word and just point out again that so many presidents have tried, and we have yet to figure out how to solve this very serious problem, and it's getting worse, I think. Anyway, thank you both.
Thank you, Greta.
Thank you.